your grandfather kept his fishing reels in a battered green tackle box under the workbench in the garage. Inside, wrapped in a piece of old flannel, was a brass fly reel so dark with age it looked almost black. Here is the truth. A brass fly reel, just like that one sold at auction for close to $60,000. Most old fishing reels are worth about $20 at a garage sale. A well-used spinning reel from the 1960s is worth about $10. A bait casting reel from the 1970s with a rusted spool and a bent handle is worth less than the gas it takes to drive it to the dump. The average old fishing reel is worth nothing, but a tiny fraction of old reels is worth more than the truck you drove to the lake. The difference between a $10 reel and a $10,000 reel is measured in details that almost nobody outside a small group of obsessive collectors has ever heard of. In 1872, a young gunsmith named William Hardy set up a shop in Alnwick, a market town in Northumberland, England. Within a few years, Hardy Brothers was making fishing tackle. In 1891, they introduced a reel called the Perfect. It was machined from solid brass. It had a distinctive circular perforation pattern on the faceplate. It was, for its time, the most precisely engineered fishing reel in the world. The early brass Perfects are now among the most collectible objects in the history of fishing. There are perhaps a few dozen known examples from the 1890s. Most are in museums or private collections. A Hardy all-brass Perfect from the first years of production has sold at auction in England for close to $60,000. It is among the highest prices ever paid for a single fly reel at public auction anywhere in the world. A brass fishing reel, worth more than most new cars. The same era that produced the Hardy Perfect also produced the strangest reel in American history. In 1859, a gunsmith in Rochester, New York, named William Billinghurst, received the first American patent for what is recognized as a fly reel. His reel looked nothing like what anyone today would call a fishing reel. It was a delicate cage of wire and brass, open on all sides, with the spool visible through the frame. Collectors call it the Birdcage reel. Billinghurst made reels in several sizes, but he also made a giant version, 7 inches in diameter, an exhibition piece. Only one is known to have survived. A standard-sized Billinghurst reel, in its original box, sold at Lang's auction in 2007 for $40,000. That is among the records for an American fishing reel sold at public auction. Most people who find a Billinghurst reel have no idea what they are looking at. It does not look like a fishing reel. It looks like a broken lamp part. That is why so many of them were thrown away. In the middle of the 19th century, 2 distinct schools of American reel making emerged. The first was in Frankfort, Kentucky. The second was in New York City. The Kentucky reels were made by craftsmen who had trained as watchmakers and silversmiths. B.F. Meek and Bessie Mellam formed a partnership in Frankfurt around 1852. The reels were brass and German silver, hand-cut, hand-filed, marked on the foot with the maker's name. After the partnership dissolved in 1881, Meek's Sons continued under the name B.F., Meek and Sons. Their model, 44 fly reel, made from German silver with an ivory handle, is one of the most beautiful American fly reels ever produced. Examples in fine original condition have sold for several $1,000s and more. The New York reels were made by craftsmen of equal precision. The von Hofer family, first Frederick, then his sons Julius and Edward, made reels in New York City from the 1850s through the early 20th century. Julius vom Hofer reels featured raised pillars, German silver construction, and hard rubber side plates. Edward vom Hofer specialized in the highest grade fly reels, including the Perfection Model 360, which retailed for a price in the early 1900s, equal to a month's wages for a working man. Rare, Edward vom Hof Perfection reels in strong original condition now sell for $4,000 to $5,000 and more. The gunsmiths and the jewelers had one thing in common. They built objects designed to last a century. They succeeded. Stanley Bogdan was born in 1918 in Nashua, New Hampshire. He was the son of a machinist. He started making fishing reels by hand in the 1940s. He never mass-produced anything. Every Bogdan reel was machined, assembled, and finished by Stan Bogdan, or later, by his son Steve. The waiting list for a new Bogdan reel was 3 to 4 years. People put their names down and waited. Bogdan died in 2011 at the age of 92. He never stopped making reels. A new Bogdan salmon reel sold for about $2,400 directly from the maker. On the secondary market, rare Bogdan models have sold for several times that. The value went up after he died, because the supply that came from his own hand stopped forever. Bogdan reels do not look like antiques, they were made in living memory. The person who owned a Bogdan might still be alive. The person who bought it at a garage sale for $15 might not know that the name stamped on the side belongs to one of the most important American reel makers of the 20th century. So what separates a $20 reel from a $40,000 reel? 4 things. The first is condition. This is the cruelest rule in reel collecting. A reel with its original finish, no pitting, no corrosion, smooth mechanical function, and no replaced parts is worth vastly more than the same reel with a bent handle and a seized spool. A single replaced screw can cut the value in half. Original condition is everything. The second is rarity. How many were made? How many survive? The Billinghurst giant birdcage reel is rare because only one is known to exist. The Hardy All-Brass Perfect from 1891 is rare because only a few dozen survive. A Shakespeare bait casting reel from the 1950s is common because millions were made and hundreds of thousands still exist. Common reels are worth nothing. Rare reels are worth whatever a collector is willing to pay. The third is the maker. Certain names command premiums. Hardy, vom Hofe, Meek, Bogdan, Billinghurst. These were not factories churning out commodity products. These were individual craftsmen building objects one at a time. The maker's name stamped on the reel foot or the side plate is the single most important piece of information on the entire object. If you do not know the maker, you do not know what you have. The fourth is originality. Has the reel been modified, repaired, refinished, or restored? A reel with all original parts, original finish, original box, and original papers is worth multiples of the same reel without. The box alone can be worth more than the reel inside it. Most people threw the box away. The real story here is not about fishing. It is about what happens when nobody is looking. For most of the 20th century, fishing tackle was not collectible. It was disposable. An old reel was just an old reel. You replaced it with a new one and threw the old one in a drawer. And then, slowly, a small group of collectors started paying attention. They studied the makers. They cataloged the variations. They built a market that nobody else knew existed. That is the moment value hides, in the gap between what the world ignores and what a handful of obsessed people understand. Your grandfather's tackle box is probably full of $20 reels. Probably. but probably is not the same as definitely. The reel that broke an auction record. The reel that a craftsman machined by hand in 1859. The reel that a man in New Hampshire spent a lifetime building one piece at a time. Looked exactly like every other forgotten reel in every other forgotten tackle box. It was dirty. It was corroded. It was one of a kind. Nobody looked at it twice until someone did. When is the last time you opened your grandfather's tackle box and read the name stamped on the reel foot? Subscribe to Money Fails. Real stories, real mistakes, real lessons. Your grandfather's brass fly reel is probably worth about $20. But the reel that sold for close to $60,000 was worth $20 too. Right up until the moment someone who knew what they were looking at read the name on the side. See you in the next one.